Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, 1987's Bloody Movie. This is also known as Terror Night. And it says on the front of this retro media distributed DVD, it says right at the top, from the producer of Dude, Where's My Car? Very interesting. This is Bloody Movie, a very unknown 80s horror film right here, slasher horror film, and an extremely unique one and bizarre one at that. Unlike anything that I've seen before, and of course people are not talking about this movie at all. This is the back of the DVD. If you know Retro Media, I believe, does a lot of Fred Olin Ray films, but this is the back of it right here. And we're going to get into this film. There's a little, we got some screaming woman right there from the front as well, who's really awesome in this movie, that girl in the front there. And let's get into this film here, folks. I believe this is still in print. I bought this for fairly cheap on Amazon a couple years back. So let's get into Bloody Movie 1987, aka Terror Night. You know, a Bloody Movie is a film that is... It takes the 80s slasher horror type of atmosphere and vibe and storyline and completely makes something unique with it. Its own unique beast. What we have here is old Hollywood meets the modern day 1987. And we have a faded, mysterious Hollywood star from way back when. And his whereabouts are unknown. His estate is seemingly left bare. His massive estate, the mystery of a massive estate that's kind of desolate, and young people want to go there and explore. There's some fans of this faded Hollywood star from back when, who did tons and tons of movies of all different genres. And these are old Hollywood films. And they go to this estate, and what they encounter is death and murder and mystery and a vault and something unfolding. And something unfolding through many different people and faces. This is 1987's Bloody Movie. First and foremost, let's look at the music for this film. You know, we have some old Hollywood music in this movie, and it kind of starts off looking like that as well. So you're really kind of put off guard. This movie's called Bloody Movie, and there's some old Hollywood music in here. It's like very, interesting. And then, of course, we have some 80s pop, rock, even metal in this film, all unknown to my ears. And I believe, it wasn't, these weren't big tunes, big pieces of music. Probably bands associated with the making of the film, the people who made the film, so on and so forth, like the sex comedies that I talk about on this YouTube page. And so great pieces of 80s core types of music. We also have some kind of 80s electronica as well in that pop realm. And then we also have some very atmospheric 80s horror music, orchestrated synth music in here, even it having some dramatic elements as well. And then also having, some very dark, creepy, horrific elements that you would hear in some 80s horror films during this time. I mean, it sounds 80s to me. The score sounds 80s. The score sounds late night sleepover 80s, if you catch my drift. There were some styles in the movie that reminded me a bit of kind of the style possibly of the score music for the Friday the 13th TV series a bit. So there's some interesting things there with the music and the sound design and the score that really spans the majority of the film. There is music all throughout this movie, wall to wall, and all of that diversity, representing all of the different elements of the storyline and of the film. Because this film starts off and you're thinking, okay, old time Hollywood, and then really only seeing older adults. What's going on here? And then all of a sudden we get to teenagers, kind of your 80s teenagers. And the movie and the music takes shifts. Stylistically, I mean, this is really something. Well, first off, this is a film that deals with a mysterious old-time Hollywood star and his whereabouts and such. But we also have in this film, some big kind of Hollywood actors, per se, or people in movie history like John Ireland, Aldo Ray, Alan Hale, Dan Haggerty, and Cameron Mitchell. They put them right on the back there. But don't forget, we also have Michelle Bauer in here, who would not be deemed, probably classified with those gentlemen that I just mentioned. But there's a lot of star power in this film. And while those guys are really doing cameos, per se in the film, it's interesting that they actually got some names, some people with a bit of stardom, some star power, and very, very interesting. And then meeting, the 80s with Michelle Bauer as well. We also have a guy in this film who is in Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. He's wearing glasses. He looks very younger, but very similar. And I think he's done some other stuff as well. So put in the comments if you know who I'm talking about there. I don't have his name offhand. Stylistically, this film is style, and it's the style and it's the storyline that sets this movie apart from other 80s horror films and from other horror films in general. We have which seems to be old Hollywood movie clips or old movie clips, black and white or kind of yellow tinted, old movie posters cascading across the screen in montages. And we have things that are happening in the modern time of the movie that are mimicking old-time movie clips. And so sometimes the action in Bloody Movie, the murder, the death in Bloody Movie, all of a sudden the piece of murder, the piece of evil that happens, they'll show the old movie clip to kind of continue the scene, and then you'll come back to the modern day and see it mimic the movie. And in some ways, you've seen horror movies before where you have somebody mimicking, art or old movies or, other people. And this film plays on that in a whole new way. The style of using old movie clips and even old movie posters reminded me of another movie that I looked at on this YouTube page called Myra Breckenridge. So you can look that up. Just the style, just the way that it was done. Now, the interesting thing also is that this film has these pieces to it, these sections to it that really define its style. You're really taking a journey in this film, and things are going to constantly be changing. And that's what makes Bloody Movie even more interesting, because at the beginning of the film, we kind of are outside at night with these older people. And then we go into an abandoned estate with a bunch of rowdy teenagers. And we're even in a teenager's kind of house, or maybe sorority house, college, not really sure, they're all living together, or just younger people. And then you think that the majority of the movie is going to happen at the estate, late at night. And then at the hour mark, it kind of ends at the estate. And you're wondering, wait a second, this is where a typical 80s horror film would end. But then it continues on in an 80s neighborhood at night in a house. And so the film, and then this dumbfounding ending to the movie where it's almost surreal, or taking place where you're really seeing characters living in an old movie, but without seeing the old movie clip per se, you're actually now seeing it, and then you kind of see the set. You see the lights, you see everything, and I was left perplexed. I was like, wait a second, what is happening here? And then this mysterious walk through a neighborhood at night. So there's all these different elements, and if that were not enough, we also have gore in this film. I mean, it's called Bloody Movie, right? So there better be some blood. Yeah, we have decapitations and stabbings and cutting off hands and ripping a body apart using a car. I mean, there is some gore, there is some blood, there's some carnage in this movie. So there's definitely some 80s gore in this movie, and I would say pretty damn well done as well. The movie has a late night vibe to it. It's dark and just felt 80s to me in that regards. But then you have kind of these older male actors that I mentioned that you would not typically see in an 80s horror film, right? And Cameron Mitchell, I got to say, plays this detective, and he is batshit crazy. He's out of his mind. I don't know how much of that was improv or how much of that was scripted, but Cameron Mitchell just plays this crazy detective just for a small piece of the film, and it's actually somewhat dumbfounding. Aldo Ray also plays a really bizarre little piece in the film. Involving drunkenness and some bizarre, it's interesting. The film kind of plays off of murder and carnage as entertainment and as a movie, as some characters are watching it unfold and actually doing the murders. Is this all part of living in the movie? It's also interesting to note that the teens or the young people in this film are obsessed with the news. They're obsessed with turning the news on. I thought that was really an interesting thing, because the news will play a part, obviously, in the unfolding of the film as a plot element, as a storyline, but it's interesting that these young people are so involved in that. We also have full nudity in this film from Michelle Bauer. We also have a male's ass, and we also have some fist fight sequences and some knife fight sequences. We have some nitrate film in the movie, and we also have this girl in the front is topless and some bathtub love making there. And it really has all of the different elements, so many different elements of a horror film, of an 80s horror film. The atmosphere, the mystery, the gore and murders. In some ways, it reminded me of the movie Popcorn a little bit. The 90s movie Popcorn. There were also some elements of that as well. So this is 1987's Bloody Movie, aka Terror Night. Here it is, folks. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more, like Bloody Movie. Thank you so much, and good night.